What's up, friends? In today's episode of ProRevenge, we have 3 stories about sticking at the drug-dealing human pieces of trash. And the first story is called Ambulance-Abusing Drug Dealer Now Gets Frequent Visits from the Cops. Here's the backstory. I work as a full-time paramedic in a moderately busy service. Recently, we have had the pleasure, privilege, and honor to be used as a taxi service for an extra special piece of garbage who calls 911 with a variety of fake complaints so he can get a quote-unquote free ride from his home 20 miles away to the hospital, where he typically refuses to even go inside and then will simply walk down the street and buy heroin that he then takes back home and deals to all of his piece of garbage friends. Now I say quote-unquote free because an ambulance bill can range anywhere from between $500 to $1,000+ depending on the nature of the call, miles driven, etc. One would think that this is an expensive taxi ride, and it would be, except that this douche nozzle has flat out said to us on multiple occasions that he has no intention of ever paying his bill. And since he has Medicaid and has no medically necessary reason for going, we can't even get any money from insurance. So refuse to take him, right? Alas, if only it were that simple. For those who don't know, if you call 911 regardless of your complaint, heart attack, or toe fungus, we have to transport you if you want to go. A few weeks ago, we went to pick this trash bag of a human up when he called for chest pain. He's in his 20s. We get there and he's standing on his deck, smoking a cigarette and laughing with a very unamused firefighter. We start talking to him, and when I ask him what he's hoping the ER will do for him today, his response is, I don't know, get evaluated? Followed by a snarky laugh. Now, he legitimately does have a history of recent infection in his heart from using so much heroin himself. However, he got booted out of the hospital that was trying to treat him when they caught him sneaking out to buy heroin and then using/dealing from his room. Fast forward back to the present. We, one of my partners and I, took him a couple of weeks ago to a different hospital than he usually goes to. After a big long argument with him about his frequent trips and the fact that he has been sometimes refusing to even go inside the ER, telling crews that the nurses are mean to him, he doesn't feel safe, etc. and so forth, before walking out of the ambulance down the street to buy drugs. When I brought this up to him, he got super pissy, accusing me of not believing he is sick, which I don't because he isn't, and mistreating him because he's an addict, and blah blah blah. On a whim, I called the hospital he has been using as his designated go-to right down the road from his suppliers, and I got a doctor who knew exactly who he was and what his BS angle is, and he told us to leave his ass there and not transport him. When he was informed of this, he lost his crap, yelling and flipping furniture over and having an all-around very amusing temper tantrum before slamming the door to his house. Now the revenge. My partner I was working with that day told me that while I was on the phone with the hospital, he went inside his house and came back out stuffing a knife in his pockets. I called our dispatch as well as supervisor and told them about Douche Canoe, his temper tantrum, and knife. They called the sheriff's department, who also dispatched the fire department, and they put him on a house watch. What this means is that from now on, anytime that he calls 911, neither us nor the fire department will come until the police have gone first, regardless of what he's calling for. Additionally, we talked with our medical director, and he's now on a call before you haul list, meaning that anytime he wants a ride to the hospital, we can call a doctor and get permission to refuse to transport him, even if he's requesting, or in his case demanding, transport. How I got revenge on violent drug dealers, which eventually led to their arrest. After my second year in college, a friend and I moved in with another friend. He was renting a 3-bedroom house in a lower income area, so it was pretty cheap. It was fairly close to the university campus, and as all 3 of us were attending, we were able to work it out where it would be a whole lot cheaper living there than on campus. The neighborhood itself wasn't bad at all. It was mostly other kids, elderly folks, and a few others here and there. Everyone in the neighborhood was pretty relaxed and chill, except for our stupid neighbors. We'll call them Walter and Jesse. Nice, a Breaking Bad reference, I like that. Now, Walter and Jesse were brothers, and entrepreneurs of sort. They ran a small in-home business selling product in a niche market that required very little advertisement. They were meth cooks and dealers. Obnoxious, loud, violent drug dealers. Everyone hated them. but nobody would say anything about it due to the constant threats they would make while strung out from their front yard. We pretty much fell in line at first. They would blast music and explicit movies from their house from 7 a.m. until 7 a.m. We'd hear screaming matches at their house that became full-blown fights on their lawn, huge parties that would go on for days, and to our chagrin, we ignored it all. Well, up arrives March, and my income tax comes in. I only get about $500, but god damn it, that's my $500. And I'm gonna buy something for me. Everything has gone to college and bills, and I want to splurge. I go out and buy a 42-inch LCD TV. It's a Vizio, but it's the first HD TV I've ever had. My friend and I set it up, and oh boy did we have fun that week. And only that week, for that's as long as I had it. The meth bros decide that they're gonna shoot their BB gun at whatever the hell they can see. At birds, bushes, fences, and especially windows. Well, one little BB decided to go straight through my window and hit my TV, cracking it while I was playing some MW2. My face dropped, and I heard laughing, which then immediately turned to death threats if I called the cops. Now, I know they had real guns. They had no issue showing them to anyone who looked at them. My friends and I were all disappointed at the turn of events, and both of them had submitted to not do anything about it. But nay, not I. The one time I purchased me a bit of joy in my life, I grew up fairly poor, it was taken away from me. So I plotted, and I plotted, and I plotted some more. And an evil plot I did accomplish. I saved up every Gatorade bottle I purchased for about 3 weeks. And every other day, I would go to a different store and purchase pool cleaning tablets and rubbing alcohol at a different one. All with cash, of course. Now, some of you might see what's going on, and you'd be right. I had about 15 bottles saved up, and I made some spectacular chlorine gas bombs. I waited for a night when both of them were gone. It was about 3 in the morning, so virtually everyone was asleep. I had prepared the Gatorade bottles with the alcohol prior, so I started loading the tablets into the bottles and throwing them over the fence. Since I didn't break down the tablets, it took a while for them to go off. I was able to get them all over the fence before the first one went boom, and boom they went. I go back inside and into my room. I hear them going off. Boom, boom. One of my roommates wakes up and goes, "What the hell?" Boom! He wakes my other roommate. His room was closer, and they're both freaking out. Boom! Time to put my game face on. I scramble on out of there and react visibly scared. Boom! I look at them and tell them to call the cops. Boom, boom! He calls 911 and tells the cops he hears explosions. I go outside and pretend to look like I'm trying to find out what's going on. Boom! I tell my friend that it's coming from next door. Boom! He tells me that the cops have already been sent to the area by a previous caller. Boom! Boom! I tell him there's a bunch of smoke coming from outside. Boom! They tell us to stay inside. Boom! The last one goes off. We close the doors and watch the mayhem unfold. Right before the cops come, the Heisenbros show up freaking out. Right as they go inside, about 3 cop cars show up and go to the front door. The officers haul them away and we go inside. They question us, we tell them what we know. As far as the chlorine gas is concerned, it has already wafted into the atmosphere. They came back a couple of days later and asked us questions specifically about the brothers. We told them what we heard about them and how they acted and what they did. The officer left and that was the last time I talked about it. Nobody knows about what I did but me. And it was the happiest we've been in a long time. The last I heard about them, they were doing hard time for their drug ring, being in possession of illegal firearms, and human trafficking, surprisingly. Got a man in prison for selling drugs to my wife. A man, the drug dealer, encouraged my wife to do meth, got her hooked, and then treated her as an explicit slave. Not saying that she wasn't responsible as well, but he shared a good part of the blame. When she first started on the drugs, before the explicit stuff, I tracked down her dealer and confronted him. I went to his job and asked him to come outside. I very calmly told him that I knew about his side job and what was happening with my wife. I said that if he agreed to never contact her or answer if she called, that I would just go away. He agreed. We shook hands and I left. But he didn't keep up his part of the bargain. 2 months later, I'm unemployed, my wife is in rehab, and he's still out partying, selling drugs every day. I made a call to the corporate office of the place where he worked. I told him he was selling drugs out of the store, and 2 days later he was fired. I followed him for a month, observing and taking notes. I called a friend of mine who works for the state police. I told him what I had been doing. He advised against it, but said that I wasn't breaking any laws. So I gave him a detailed schedule of where and when the guy picked up his drugs, the route and stops he made when he left, and specifically when he drove down a street passing an elementary school. Then I told him that the guy's tags were expired. A few days later, he was pulled over in a school zone and arrested. He was sentenced to a total of 12 years. I wrote him a letter explaining why he was in prison, told him why he lost his job, was arrested, and had his freedom taken away for such a large portion of his life. Wife got clean, and I tried to forgive her for 3 years. It wasn't successful, so we got a divorce. It still hurt, and it wasn't immediately satisfying. But now I look back on it with absolutely no regret, and I'm very glad that I did it. Update. I've seen several questions about why I sent the letter. For exactly the same reason I chose to get revenge on him in the first place. To hurt him in order to make myself feel better. That doesn't work for some people, but it did for me in this situation. I'm certainly not a hero. I don't even consider myself a good guy. I didn't do it so that he wouldn't get other women hooked or sell meth to kids or anything like that. No ulterior motives, just revenge, pure and simple. He was hurting someone I loved, my family. I warned him, but he still kept it up. I didn't sneak around skulking in the shadows when I followed him. He saw me plenty of times. He knew that I was watching him. It didn't occur to me to be frightened of what he might do. I was more concerned then and now that the police might think that I'm hunting him. The guy was a bully, and although I think the term narcissist is overused, I believe he definitely qualifies. He's done the same thing to a few other women/wives and several very young girls, teenagers. He thought he could get away with it because he had in the past. In my experience, bullies back down when someone pushes back hard enough. This case proved to be no different. He was released from prison 4 years ago. I saw him around town a few times and attempted to approach and talk to him twice. Both times he turned and quickly left the store. He moved to a different city about 75 miles away, found God, and got married to a much older woman. Nothing wrong with any of that, just facts. I don't hold grudges against him, and I don't care if he does towards me. I feel that he got off plenty easy. I'm not some badass guy, but if he thinks that things aren't square, then I guess he'll come see me about it. I was never particularly concerned about his possible retribution, but I did take precautions. And no, it doesn't keep me up at night. Alright you guys, that brings us to the end of today's video. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed these stories, and let me know which story was your favorite in the comment section below. And I'll see you guys in the next video.